On Dare to Say, this episode, I'm sat in front of a remarkable woman who is a trainer, an educator, an author, a life coach, and so much more. Dr. Lynda Ince-Greenaway. Thank you for joining me.
And thank you for inviting me, Shezzie.
So as we discuss race, resilience, and identity today, tell me, who is Dr. Lynda Ince-Greenaway?
Black is the color of my skin. Black is the light.
I feel almost as though you've just said it. But, my name, Lynda, it actually means beautiful. And that was one of the least characteristics that I would have given myself, as I was growing up, and particularly when I came to this country. I wouldn't have said that I was a beautiful person. But I have learned that beauty comes from the inside. And that is what I share with people. But I am a wife, I am a mother, I'm a very proud mother. I have a son who is a doctor and who's done very, very well. I am also a sister, have a close family. And on the professional front, I have done a lot of things, and I keep moving from step to step, and I keep reaching for higher heights. And so I have achieved quite a lot. I qualified as a social worker. So I was a social worker for years, and then I became a lecturer at the University of Hertfordshire, and I taught students, I mentored students. I saw students coming back and how successful they were.
Yes.
And I thought, well, I had a hand in that. So then I moved on and I set up my business, freelance business, training professionals, training foster carers, working with people on the stage, talking both and giving presentations both in this country and in the United States.
Wow.
So I have done a lot.
You've done a lot.
A lot, and I think, well, how did I do all that? But now I'm in those twilight years. I am a life coach, and I enjoy that because I enjoy talking to people and finding out about people, digging deep. So those are the things that I have done. That's who I am. But I'm also a jovial person, I love to laugh, and take laughter away from me, you take away my soul.
You laugh and smile.
I do.
So, Dr. Lynda, you describe yourself as having the spirit of audacity. How did you arrive at that description for yourself?
I arrived at it through this book that I wrote. It's my memoir, and it's called Hard Truth.
I've read it.
Wonderful. And so that was about growing out of adversity. And so the adversity that I suffered, I explain it in the book. And that was because my husband was the second Black police officer in this country. He wanted to support, to help his own community. But in the midst of doing that, he died. He died whilst he was on duty, killed in a tragic accident. The first day he ever stepped into a panda car.
Wow.
And at the same time, I was pregnant with my son.
Oh, wow.
And the trauma of that. And I came through that and I fought hard. And so that was, in order to deal with that, I had to be brave. I had to be courageous. And that was why I called it the spirit of audacity, because the spirit of audacity would not allow me to give up. Because I knew in my heart of hearts that if I didn't hold on, my entire life would have been destroyed. I didn't want to live. I didn't want to, carry on. Everything was shattered, and my life was like as nothing. I was homeless. I became homeless. I became broken. And because I fought back, that was what I call the spirit of audacity. It is a courageous spirit. It is a brave spirit. And I had that spirit from the time I was a child. But when I came to this country, that spirit was kind of beaten out of me.
Wow.
But when I suffered, and Shezzie, it's only when we suffer, when we go through hard times, that we begin to see who we really are, because we are tested sometimes beyond what we can endure. And that was such a hard time in my life. But I overcame it. And for me, that was audacity. I dared to be brave. You're talking about daring.
Yes.
I dared to be brave. I dared to stand out. I dared to, overcome. I dared to go back to the beginning, because I left school without any qualifications, And because I dared to do that, I am who I am today. I am this,
But
you know.
let's go back a bit further, because for anyone to lose their husband at such an early time, I'm guessing that it was the 60s, in the early 60s.
It was late
60s.
It was 1971, actually.
1971. And what year
Yes.
did you come to this country? And what was it like growing up
Yeah.
as a young black child, Tina, at that particular time, and having
Yeah.
to face all of those things
Right.
in this particular environment in the UK?
Yes, it was very, very hard in those days. In the book, I paint a picture of what it was actually like, because I came from Barbados, and I came from the sun, and I walked into a country, a sea of white faces, and I wasn't accepted at school. It was very, very difficult. It was hard, because my sister and I, being the first two black girls in the school, we were told, you won't amount to much. You can expect to work in Sainsbury's. So the expectations were mediocre and very low. And so that was something that we had to fight against. But also, in the community, people didn't want to talk to you. People didn't want to sit next to you on the bus. When we went into the shops, they would throw the coins on the counter, so that they didn't touch your hand, as if they thought that the color of your skin, would literally rub off. They would tell their children things on the media. There was a pervasive fear, but also people kind of took in that fear, and they treated you in that way. So you felt we were very, very isolated. The only thing that saved us at that time was that I had a very resilient mom. And I know you're going to come to this. You're going to be talking about resilience.
Yes, yeah.
But it was because she uprooted, in midlife, after the death of my father. My father died when I was just 12 years old.
Wow.
And she uprooted and she came here. We came looking for a new life. We came with expectancy. But what we found was rejection. I didn't have a sense of belonging. I lost my confidence. Didn't have that sense of I can do, It was more like I can't do, because people had given me that sense of, you're not any good. You won't amount to much. And so in those days, it was really hard. But, in order to protect us, my mom kept us under her wing. And she didn't ever send us out one by one. She sent us out two by two. Chaperone, you look after.
You had to back then.
You had to then, because you were scared even of young people, children on the streets calling you names, derogatory names. Also, there was, at school, there was a lot of bullying. But it wasn't just bullying, it was psychological bullying. And the type of bullying which said to you, you don't belong here. So you looked on people's faces and you knew that you didn't belong. So that was that era in which I grew up, and I came to this country. But I must tell you, too, that one of the things that kind of saved me, as well as my mom, was the music we heard coming through the airwaves. Young, gifted, black. It painted another narrative. You don't have to be put down by other people, but you can believe in yourself.
Yes.
So those songs, sort of coming out of that era, very, very important, really, in kind of building self-confidence in who I was.
You've given us some really good examples in your own personal experiences of what it is to be resilient. But one of the questions that comes to my mind is it different, the Black experience here in the UK, when you compare it to other minority ethnic groups?
Yes, it is different. There are some similarities because minority ethnic people are coming. We're all coming looking for a new life. We are coming looking for jobs. So, but when you think of African, if you want to talk about African Caribbean people, then we came because of a relationship that we had with what we call then the mother country. The mother country was England. And England had a history of colonialism. And colonialism was what brought us here because we believed that we were somehow feathered
Connected.
and connected
yeah.
to them. But as I said, when we came, the experiences we had actually said, you don't belong. So yes, we have different experience. I think Asians came, and they came some people came because they were jettisoned from some parts of Africa, and they came here, and they came with a different kind of mindset. But we came because we were invited, and we came because we were invited to rebuild, the National Health Service, rebuild some of the industries after the Second World War that were broken, So we came with a very different agenda. And some of us came, our parents came because they wanted to stay. My mum was one of them, coming to stay for 5 years.
And ended up staying the whole
And they
lifetime,
stayed.
yes.
But why did they end up staying? Because they were pushed into low-paid jobs. They didn't have the finances, the money. They were just eking out a living. And so they met with a lot of hardship, and they had to fight against that hardship. So it was difficult then to make it in a way that some other minority ethnics, and because they came at a later stage, we had actually paved the way. But for a lot of...
We paved the way for a lot, and
For-
slavery
for a lot,
paved a way for a lot.
Absolutely. Slavery paved the way for a lot of people.
So we know that the impact of slavery is phenomenal when we think about our community, particularly the African Caribbean community, and trauma, and the way in which trauma is embedded in the psyche even, and even physically. But I want to ask you, what do you think are the historical challenges we face as a community?
I think one of the biggest challenges we face is coming together as a community. And I think that is difficult because we come from different parts of the Caribbean. Although we have similar experiences, they are different experiences. So the challenge is really what is actually going on now. And there is a lot of rhetoric, far right rhetoric. And that rhetoric is about immigration. Again, you don't belong here. So we are going back to that. And it is sad because many of us have children who were born in this country.
Grandchildren now.
Yeah, and grandchildren, right. So we have nowhere to go. They have nowhere to go back to. So that is difficult when people say to us, because we've been instrumental in building this country, in contributing. We've been contributors to this country. So those experiences are hard experiences, but we have to find a way as individuals and as community groups to kind of rise above those things. And the only way we can do it is through economic growth. We can only do it through support. We can only do it through connectedness. As we connect one with another, we don't fight each other, but we connect with each other. And we also look at ways in which we can make that collective effort. So collectivity and interdependence, those are the concepts I constantly talk about because they are important in building up ourselves against what is happening now. And I think that there are many people out there who are using immigration as a political football. And they're using it against us and saying that we have to go back. So if you go back then to, you were talking earlier about the 60s, the 70s. Do you remember Enoch Powell?
Oh, yeah.
His Rivers of Blood speech. And how he says, if we don't get rid of them, we are going to have rivers of blood. In other words, there's going to be violence. And there's only so much people can take. So we've had to fight back against some of the things that have been happening to us. So, what has been happening? Inequality of opportunity, lack of employment. There's been lack of education, poor educational results, the stigmatization of being a Black person, lone parenting. Those are some of the gritty issues that we need to confront. We need to teach our children how to become resilient so that we now pass on to the next generation how they become strong and how they fight against, some of what is going on at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, the dichotomy isn't it, though, that how embedded is trauma within the Black community that, makes it difficult for us to make those changes. Because, we're talking about a community in terms of the African Caribbean community that has only been here for about 70 years now. So how embedded is trauma?
It is. It's very embedded. First of all, you have to say, well, how do we define trauma? And trauma is an experience that we have that is psychologically crippling. So I can't think of any other experience that is more crippling than enslavement. And enslavement has also led to the enslaved mind.
Absolutely.
So now we are still thinking like we are slaves. We are still pandering to the persons who enslaved us. Those ideologies, that enslaved us and kept us down and wrote in history books that we were inferior and that they were superior to us. What we have got to do is to teach our children that they're not inferior to anyone. They can do anything that they want to do. In fact, when my son said to me, when he was quite young, he said, "Mom, I want to be a doctor." And I said, "Let's do it." Let's do that,
Yes, of course.
because you can do it. And he had many people saying to him, teachers, "You can't be a medic." And I said, "Yes, you can." So we can do these things, but that trauma makes us think. It has an impact on the way we think, and that's why we talk about the psychological part of it, because the psychology of how we think actually affects how we then behave and how we act. We have to think from a position of power, not disempowerment. We have to do that for ourselves, and we have to do that for our children, for the next generation coming along. So that I would say is, yes, it's very embedded, but we can fight against it. It's embedded because of our slavery experience.
Absolutely.
That's where we're coming from.
I mean, I'd like to say, though, that we have moved on as a community. We now see that we've got Black professionals in many spaces.
Yes,
whether they're teachers within the media.
Yes.
And so that change, although slow, is beginning to happen.
Yes.
But, what tools do we need as a community, as people, to become resilient?
Right. Well, there are a lot of tools that we need. I don't know of any workman that goes to a job and doesn't have a toolkit. You wouldn't send an electrician to do a plumber's job, right? So we've got to have the right tools. And the right tools begin, I think that there are a number of tools, but perseverance is one of them, not giving up. And not saying, so we have come here and we have achieved this. There's a lot more to achieve. And there's a lot more to achieve for our children and the next generation coming along, So perseverance, not giving up. We also have to be tenacious in the way we fight for what we want. We have to stop being consumers and be traders. So in an economic sense, we are always buying things from other people, rather than selling things to others. But we're actually coming from a history where we did all that, where we were traders, where we had governance, where we were rulers, where the ancient civilizations did this long before Christopher Columbus. And before Europeans came on the scene.
We know that now.
We know that now, don't we?
Yes.
So we know, but we have to value that. And I think that's one of the tools. that we have in our toolkit is really about valuing ourselves. The other, I would say, is having insight, spiritual insight. That's where we come as a people, we are spiritual. And when you ask me, who are you? I should have said, first thing I should have said, I am a Christian. And not be afraid to say that, because other ethnicities are not afraid to say who they are.
That's right.
You know, so we have to become rooted and grounded in who we are.
But how much of that is rooted in our lack of identity
Yes.
and culture?
Yeah, yeah. Because we don't trade, we don't see culture as something that we can trade. But that is what we have. That is our gift. You know, we come from countries where it's rich in some things, yes, but rich in generosity, rich in spirituality, rich in community spirit, the giving, the taking, the support structure. Those things are the tools we need to keep developing all the time. And not saying I can't help somebody because I have now put my foot on the ladder and I have become successful, I can't turn back and help you. So in fact, I will tell you, I'll give you an example of when I was studying for my MPhil. And I heard of this lady who had got her MPhil. She was a Black woman. And I thought, oh, lovely. I'll go to her and I'll ask her. Do you know what she said to me?
No.
Go to the library.
All right.
She said to me, go to the library.
Yes, guarded.
Right? Right? So she didn't give me the support I needed. But from that day, what I actually said is, if God, you allow me to do this, my mantra will be to help others. It will be to support others. And that's how I began to support students, you know, and to help them become professionals, you know. So we have to turn back. There's nothing about, you know, I succeed, so you don't succeed. No. You know, if you succeed, I have to succeed. So we share our resources. We share the external resources and we share the internal resources that we have. It's a gift. So we use these gifts to help and to support each other. It's the strongest bridge that we can build.
And it definitely is a mind shift that needs to happen amongst us as a community, in that we support each other and that we don't behave so guarded.
Yes.
And for me, that is something that is happening slowly. We begin to unpick those relationships slowly. But as Black women, and you mentioned earlier about us having single parent households.
Yes.
How do Black women empower themselves when they find themselves stereotypically positioned in a way which is not positive within the community?
Right. Well, let me say that within our communities, first of all, there is a lot of strength. So we can't deny that. And women carry the matriarchs, you know, the matriarchs carried a lot of power, and they had a position whereby they brought up the children. They, you know, they were the rod that, you know, sort of. But in order to empower ourselves as Black women, we have to look for the best in ourselves. We must not allow ourselves to be used and abused, you know, but we must find a way to circumvent all of those circumstances that surround us. And I know that sometimes it is difficult. It is difficult to do that if you haven't got the support. But becoming or finding a way now to not only become resilient, but also to empower oneself, you have to believe. You have to believe that you can do it. And then you step out in faith and you do it.
Yes.
That's the only way you will do it.
Exactly what Dr Lynda Ince did.
That's what I did. Yes.
That's what you did.
Yes.
That's what you did. You know, when we're talking about empowering ourselves as Black women, you know, you said step out in faith.
Yes. Yes.
But that sometimes can be so hard to do.
Yes. It is hard. But anything worth having and anything worth doing, you have to fight for it.
Absolutely.
It doesn't come and fall in your lap, you know. So there's a lot of hard work that goes into it. And I can tell you, Pauline, many times when I was studying and there were barriers in my way as a Black woman, the only Black woman sitting in the classroom. And, the idea would come to me, give up. Why are you doing this? And I'm like, no. However hard it is,
Yes.
however hard it is, I'm going to keep going. So we have to keep on keeping on, and we have to have the purpose. If there is no purpose behind what we are doing, if there is no motivation behind what we are doing, we will never do it. We'll never empower ourselves. And also, we have to learn how to stand up for what we believe in. If I believe in something and I feel that it is of worth, then I'm going to fight for it. So my next example is of a woman who came to me for coaching, and she was in a terrible relationship with this man, and she wouldn't let go. They were living in the same house, but they were fighting every day, fighting every day. She was living in a house with a man that where they had a really terrible relationship, but she couldn't let go of him. She couldn't empower herself. But what she needed to do was to think about what was best for her. So 10 years later, she's still in that relationship because she couldn't step out of it.
Right.
She was helpless. She felt this sense of helplessness. So if we turn around helplessness, then we get to that stage where now we begin to talk about becoming powerful. And so when we go back to our experiences, our psychological experiences, that has all been about how our minds have been influenced. So as Black women, yes, we are strong, but we've got to be strong in our own right, not because somebody else wants us to be strong, but because we have done so much. We have achieved so much. So now we have to show that. And I would say that's how we have to empower ourselves, because very often we want other people to empower us.
That's it.
Yeah. But it only begins when we empower ourselves and when we see that advancement is good. So for me, when I was in that stage where I was talking about adversity, I said, didn't I, that I left school without any qualifications. But at 23, 24, I went and sat in a class with people who were doing O levels.
But how do you keep yourself motivated? How do you keep going?
Because
How does Lynda do it?
how do I do it? Because I just keeping on. I do not give up. And if I feel that I'm a problem solver. So if I feel that a problem is difficult, I will look for alternatives. I will look for other ways. I will look for opportunities, and when that door of opportunity opens, I'll step into it, So we have to look for those opportunities and just utilize them as they come. Do not allow opportunities. And that is what I say in Hard Truth. Look for that door of opportunity. And when you see it, just step into it.
So, Dr. Lynda, thank you for joining me. I'm in the process of writing my memoir, Remember Brown Sugar. But if I said to you, brown sugar, what does that spark in your mind?
Well, we go back to enslavement, don't we? We go back to the slave trade. We go back to that because it came from sugarcane. And we were taken from Africa and taken across the Caribbean to work in those fields, And so we get the sugar from there, and we get all sorts of different types of sugar, brown sugar, soft sugar, the different variations of it, but there are also other derivatives from, sugar, rum, alcohol, it has a lot to it. So brown sugar is a richness. I would say that brown sugar is richness because that's the very stuff that it comes out of right from the beginning, the molasses, So brown sugar is coming out of that. And so that is our experience.
And out of that is a phenomenal history. So when we talk about the richness of the molasses and brown sugar itself, what springs to mind is the onslaught of slavery and the resilience and survival that our people...
But the trade and how people gained economically from that trade. They did it on our backs.
Absolutely.
Do you see? So it was an exportable product. We had it, they wanted it. And so it meant that they began to sell it. So, it is difficult to start talking about these things because I think they lead you down lots of different avenues, right back to slavery. And we can see how people were treated in atrocious ways, brought on ships, taken to a place that others then came and used for their own profit, for their own benefit. We continue to suffer from that, and that's the psychological pain, the trauma that you were talking about. So brown sugar, yes, a lovely product, but we have suffered as a result of it.
And finally, what would Linda dare to say is coming next?
Okay, well, first of all, what I would dare to say, name it. Whatever has happened to you, don't be afraid to name it, to call it by its name, because that's when you get the mental freedom. Then you are able to, and that's why, this book is so important. That and this one, The Quest of Beauty, Surviving Ashes and Storm, that's what I did. But I also look at how other people did. So I would dare to say, tell your story. Dare to say, build your tools. Dare to say, use your tools. And I have a lovely little formula that I can use for the resilience tool. So now where am I going now with this?
Yes.
Is how I'm looking at how I help people build resilience, because I have done it myself and I'm a giver. So I want to help people to become resilient, to build their own personal resilience, and so that's what I'm going to do, by allowing people to have access to my knowledge, to my skills, that's where I think I'm going. I think I'm going. God give me the grace and the time, to do it, because I'm not a young woman anymore. But, I think if I have the time, I've got my audiobook coming out soon, and hopefully that will be another avenue for me. Who knows? Who knows what the future holds? But, Shezzie, I am praying that God will lead me in the right path so that this book will be of an inspiration. It already has, but continue inspiring people with my own life story. And that in the building of the tools, you can ask, when you're building the tools, tell the story. That is how you do it. You tell the story. And the story is how we begin to ask questions. When, where, what, how? And when we start asking those questions, we come up with some very, very important answers. And that's what I did in this book.
Thank you.
And I can continue doing it.
Thank you. You are truly inspiring, Dr. Lynda.
Thank you so much.
You've inspired me greatly. And if you want to find out more about Dr. Lynda Ince-Greenaway's work, you can look in the credits at the end of this video and make contact with her. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shezzie.
Black is the color of my skin. Black is the life that I live. And I am so proud to be the color that God made me. I just wanna say, black is my color. Wouldn't be no other. No. Black is my color. Wouldn't be no other. Oh. Brown is the color of my eyes, and I'd have no reason to despair. And black is the pride in me for all the world to see. I just got to is my color.